Hello, BookTube. This is Aaron from Aaron Read a Book or Aaron Read a Book, doing Friday reads. Um, Last night I had a dream that I went down to the local charity shop and bought some books. I thought I can't really ignore that, so I have bought more books. Um, and yeah, I've got the day off today, so it was something to do. Let's go through what I've bought quickly. um, there's no rhyme or reason to this book haul, but I just grabbed whatever looked interesting. Um, the first book I picked up was The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnhem. I I hadn't heard of this until recently, and then it was referenced in a book that I was reading. I think it was Barbara Pym book, and then I saw Ali, I think it was from A Genteel Black Hole, reading it, and I think he quite enjoyed it. And it kind of sounds up my street. It's about four women who go to Italy, I think it is, the Italian Riviera, and it was like a big hit in I think in the 1920s. So it sounds interesting, and it felt like I should buy it because it kept popping up in my life. Secondly, an old favourite of mine, although a book I've never heard of, Upbridge by P.G. Wodehouse. I'll have to get rid of this sticker so I can see the man's face. But I love these modern Woodhouse editions. They always have great illustrations, and I love the little dogs on this one. It sounds like it's not Jeeves and Wooster. It's um, a bunch of short stories around Uckridge. I don't know what Uckridge is, but how can it be bad? It's P.G. Wodehouse. Great quote from Stephen Fry in the back. You don't analyse such sunlit perfection, you just bask in its warmth and splendour. And that is how it does feel when you're reading P.G. Wodehouse. So, oh, look at that one. How could I resist that? Yeah, so another P.G. Wodehouse collection. This one is an author that I've never read before. I think it's John Buchan. I think it's pronounced Greenmantle, and this is sort of an adventure novel set in Constantinople. So it sounds quite interesting, and it's the kind of sequel to 39 Steps. But I don't think you have to have read the 39 Steps. I've seen the film of the 39 Steps. It's great. And I've always ignored John Buchan books, even though they're always in charity shops and stuff, because I got him mixed up with John Bunyan. He's like a 17th century Christian writer. And when I was in primary school, we had this substitute teacher who was sort of an old Irish woman, and every time she covered the class for us, she would read us Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. And it's incredibly boring. Well, it was to this primary school, so I was like 7 years old or whatever. Uh, Incredibly boring to a 7-year-old. This sort of Christian book, and she read it every single time as well. She'd just read it over and over again for every single class, and she was always terrifying. And she'd always go, "Take that smirk off your face," when she was looking at me, and I didn't know what a smirk was, so I didn't know what to do with my face. It's like Mr. Burns in the softball episodes, like with the sideburns. So I was always terrified of that teacher, and it put me off ever reading John Bunyan. And then I, for some reason, thought John Buchan was John Bunyan. I was like, why is he so popular? Why is that terrifying Irish woman's book? But yeah, if you've read any John Bunyan, let me know. I'm sure some of you have, because we've got lots of adventure fans on BookTube. Next, this one is for Victober, but I probably won't fit it in. But I bought it because of Roz's prompt for Victober, which is to read or watch a play, and it's a selection of Bernard Shaw's plays. And Plays Pleasant is and it's got Arms and the Man, Candida, The Man of Destiny, and You Can Never Tell. Never read any Bernard Shaw. Never read any Victorian plays, so if I get time to fit one in, I'll fit one in. But I'm reading a pretty big book at the moment, so I don't know if I will. This last one was really great find, and it's in wonderful condition. Obviously, never read, but this would fit in well for non-fiction November, and it's Svetlana Alexievich's The Unwomanly Face of War, and I love this edition. I don't know who the it's a Penguin Classic printing, but it's got the sort of the flaps. I do have another one of her books, and she's an interesting writer. I've not read it yet, but this is her first book, and it looks interesting as well. She's less of a writer. She edits together loads of first-hand accounts, loads of stories of something, and then makes them into a book. So this is women in I'm guessing World War II. Yeah, Second World War. But yeah, look, it's a lovely edition though. Yeah, so very happy with that. Maybe I'll read it for non-fiction November. So the 5 books I picked up. Probably didn't need to do a book haul, but I had a dream, so I had to do it. What have I been reading? I finished a couple of books, 3 books, I think, 4 if you count an audio book. We'll go through all the Victorian ones anyway. I finished The Claverings by Anthony Trollope, or I watched Steve Donahue's videos about this book after I'd finished, and he calls it The Claverings, but so I think either or. And this was a really fun Trollope. It's a standalone, so it's not part of his 2 major series. And I've read now 3 standalones and all of Barchester Chronicles, so I've read 9 Trollope books and I've loved all of them. So I'm not very a good judge of them. This one kind of has all the nice ingredients that Trollope's quite good at, but doesn't focus on politics or the church. So he quite often focuses on those. So, his books are quite often set around those worlds. So this would, I think, be quite a good first Trollope for someone to read, because it's not super long for Trollope as well. It's a classic Trollope love triangle. So the basic story is you kind of follow the hero, as Trollope often refers to people in his books as heroes and heroines, and the hero in this is Harry Clavering. He is a young lad who's kind of not rich, not poor. He would be described as a gentleman. He's got quite rich tastes in clothes and things. His father's a rector, and his father is also the uncle of the head of the family, who owns like the big house and stuff and owns all the money basically, and he's the rector who has the living on that land. So they're kind of middle class and known to a much higher class family. But the uncle is a terrible person, one of the evilest characters in Trollope. He's just awful, and his wife is also part of the story. So Harry is basically, his dad wants him to go into the church and sort of try and take over the living after he dies, although they would have to buy it off their nephew, because he's not very nice. But he wants to be like an engineer, so he wants to be sort of a self-made man, but he doesn't really have the ethic to make a success of himself. And basically at the start of the novel, he has fallen in love with the sister of Lord Clavering. Is he Lord Clavering? I guess he must be Lord. We'll call him Lord because I can't remember his first name. But the sister of Lord Clavering's wife, so his cousin's wife's sister. and she's sort of quite glamorous woman, very beautiful, but but the same age as Harry, and she doesn't want to marry Harry because they were like 21, and that's too young for Harry to marry. But she wants to marry this rich guy who she doesn't really know very well, who's friends uh, with Lord Clavering, and so Harry is rejected at the beginning of the novel, and rejected by the woman he loves, and he sort of it goes on a few years, and he goes and trains to be an engineer, and the engineer that he trains under, he falls in love with her daughter, who is a much nicer, sort of simpler, down to earth kind of woman, and he falls in love with her. Then all of a sudden, the woman that he originally proposed to returns to England after her husband had died, and they send Harry to kind of collect her from the train station and stuff because they're still friends and things, and obviously a love triangle starts again because he's still kind of in love with her. But this woman, although she's really rich and now she's got all of her husband's money, she's kind of poorer in friends and family than this new girl that he's in love with. So the new girl has like a wonderful family, and her sister and brother are a big part of Harry's life now, and she's very happy and sort of joyous. The woman who's come back, and the widow, she has no friends. Everyone thinks she's married just for money, and her husband had also sort of tried to spread rumours about her cheating on him that aren't true. So she's rich in money, but poor in life. She's got nothing, and Harry kind of feels sorry for her. So you can kind of understand why Harry is drawn to her a little bit, because he kind of feels sorry for her. But Harry himself is a bit of an idiot, and you're like, oh, Trollope, why do you always do this to us? He always puts in this character, the hero is always deeply flawed. And I think Joe Smith told me that Trollope later said that he regretted writing Harry so weak in this book. There's some great side characters in this as well. The man that the widow's husband tried to pretend he was having an affair with, that's a very complicated thing. But basically, this guy and his sister come over to England as well, and they're really funny. They're just basically con men and con women trying to get money out of everyone, and they're just great funny characters. The two women, the widow, the two women that Harry's in love with, the widow and the young girl whose dad is the engineer, are both great characters as well. You much more sympathise with both of them, weirdly, even though it's a love triangle. You sympathise with the women more than the man, and yeah, it just has all these great elements of Trollope. It's funny. It has. You don't know what's going to happen. There's a love triangle. There's great side characters, and yeah, it was just a great read. If you want to try Trollope, this is quite a good one to start with. Next, I read an author who I'd only read one book from before, and it was one of my favourite books ever. So it was a hard one to live up to, and which is Middlemarch, George Eliot's Silas Marner. I really loved this. I was kind of wary because I'd watched loads of videos of people rating their favourite George Eliot books, and a lot of people had this near the bottom, and I guess it's because it's quite short. It's like 180 pages, and Eliot's books are normally quite chunky. So I think a lot of people felt like you don't get to know the characters as well as you would in a normal Eliot novel. Also, it's quite straightforward and sentimental. So her books are normally, or a Middlemarch at least, and what I've heard about other books, the characters are very like multi-dimensional. Even the bad characters in Middlemarch you sympathise with and understand why they're like that. Whereas in this, the bad characters are pretty bad, and you don't really learn much more about them. So this is the story of the Weaver of Raveloe, Silas Marner. When the novel starts, he's quite young. I think he's like 30 or something, and he is betrayed. He works in the city, or in a big town. I don't think the name of the town is mentioned, but I can't remember what it is. But he works in the town, and he's part of this religious sect. I'm never really sure what sect it is, but it's a Christian sect. And he's betrayed there, and basically he was engaged to be married. The person who betrays him ends up married. This is all right at the beginning of the novel, so it's not a spoiler. The person who betrays him and pretends he's stolen money from the church ends up marrying the woman he's engaged to. So he's betrayed. He goes from the town into the country and becomes just that sort of single weaver rather than part of a big industrial revolution factory setting. So there is Eliot definitely does commentary on industrialization and things like that in this. And for like 15 years, Silas Marner is just a lonely man who she calls him like the spider. He's just sitting there weaving in his little house, not really interacting with the town, not the town, the village, and just making money, weaving all day, making money, not having any relationship with anyone. And he's like an automaton. I don't know if that's the right word, but he's almost like a machine, like an industrial revolution machine. And all he cares for is the gold, and he will get his coins out every night and look at them. Then quite early on, Silas Marner is robbed by another character who's one of the bad guys, and you don't really learn much more about him. You're introduced to several family in the town, and the eldest son is kind of good, but he also has been tricked, or he says he's been tricked. He's not wholly good. He's married a woman secretly, and his younger brother knows about it and is blackmailing him, and he's a nasty little character, and he's the one that steals Silas Marner's gold. And then I won't go into any more of the plot, because the rest of the novel is like Silas Marner's redemption. He sort of, something happens to him after the gold is disappeared that changes his life completely, and he has to start to interact with the village, and he becomes sort of a sort of wonderful man, a wonderful character. And it just has, although it's like a fraction of the size of Middlemarch, it felt like a mini Middlemarch to me in a way, because you completely get transported to this village of Raveloe, and George Eliot dives into people's heads, her characters' heads, so well, and it feels very real. And also, she uses the dialect of country people, so although it's quite hard to read sometimes, it really makes you feel that it's real. And I noticed she does weird things inside her characters' heads, where she will describe just like quite inconsequential stuff, just normal everyday things, kind of like a Victorian Quentin Tarantino. um, where the dialogue is just like Tarantino is famous for his dialogue just being about normal everyday things. She also dives into the the strata of society in that the villagers, there's two kind of levels. There's the sort of landowners and the villagers, and even in the local pub, the inn, they have two different rooms that they they sit in, and she dives into the villagers' heads, and they're just arguing about things and stuff. And she's really funny. I found this book much funnier than Middlemarch, or maybe I've just forgotten the funny parts of Middlemarch. But she's yeah, I can see why people struggle with Eliot though, because she does have really long complicated sentences sometimes, and the dialect is hard. It takes effort to read her books, but I just think she's brilliant. As a sentence smith, as someone writing on the page, she's unbelievably good. Like, you could easily be underlining every other sentence in this book. And yeah, I can kind of see why people, it's not their favourite, but it's still really, really, really good. So now it's just made me even more excited to read more George Eliot books. And I've bought loads recently, so I've now got Adam Bede, The Mill on the Floss, and Daniel Deronda. So yeah, I don't know when I'm going to read them, but yeah, I love this. So I needn't have worried. The other thing I've read, which I'm not going to talk about so much, is Braddon's the Doctor's Wife, which was the group read for Victober. I've been talking about that in the Discord, so I won't talk about that. I didn't enjoy it that much. It was quite good. There was some really funny bits, and I actually like Braddon's writing, but it's a take on sensationalist novels, and I feel like a lot of the references went over my head, and it felt very uneven for me, and it is serialized. So there was like days where I loved it, and then days where I didn't like it, and I it was kind of making fun of sensationalist novels, but I'm a simple lad. I like a sensation, so I was like, just do it, to do the sensational thing. But she doesn't do it. She plays with the reader. So, but I did. It was fun, and it's always fun to read with the group. But it had a lot to live up to with Trollope's The Way We Live Now we did last year. What am I reading now? What I'm currently reading is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. I'm about 150 odd pages into this, and it's a big chunky book, so that doesn't even put much of a dent in it. But I'm loving this so far. It feels more like Cranford than the North and South to me, but kind of a bit of a mixture of the two novels, and I love both of them, so I'm very happy with it so far. I'm also listening to Stephen Fry's narration of A Study in Scarlet by Arthur Conan Doyle. I was going to do The White Company, but I'm just not going to have time, I don't think. I think Wives and Daughters is going to take up most of the month for me, so I couldn't start The White Company as well, and I needed an audiobook. I have read all of Sherlock Holmes twice before, but I've never listened to the audiobook, and Stephen Fry's great at narrating it. I did forget how weird the first novel is, Study in Scarlet, because it has all this great Holmes stuff at the beginning, and you're like, oh yes, I love Sherlock Holmes, I love Conan Doyle, and then there's like this weird long bit in the middle where it just goes to Utah and it's Mormons and stuff. Very strange. If you're reading Sherlock Holmes for the first time, the rest of the novels aren't like this, but it does have that the great Sherlock Holmes element to it, and you get introduced to Watson and the Baker Street Irregulars and stuff like that. So and Lestrade. So it is fun, and it's nice having Stephen Fry, who's so enthusiastic about reading it. yeah, so that's what I've been up to. Have you read any of these books that I've hauled BookTube? I've done this book. This video's too long, but yeah. Have you read any of those? It'd be interesting if anyone's read John Buchan or The Enchanted April, especially. Have you read Silas Marner? Where does it rank in your George Eliot reading? Have you read Wives and Daughters? Don't tell me any spoilers, but I feel like most people like it, apart from Kelly. Have you read the Claverings or the Claverings? Let me know down below. Have a good one, BookTube. Bye.